When I was 13, I went to a week-long wilderness retreat with my school's outdoor leadership program. It wasn't quite scouts, but it followed a similar structure. Hiking, wilderness survival, group bonding, sleeping in tents, and plenty of time away from cell service. Our group was split up into smaller pods for the trip, and I was in what they called the Red Group, 7 kids and 2 adult leaders. Our campsite was further out than most. The guides called it Creekside. I guess they thought that sounded more charming than next to the mosquito swamp. We were a good 15-minute walk from the nearest other pod, which was how they wanted it. The idea was to give us a taste of independence, cooking our own food, solving our own problems, and learning to operate away from the main camp. I was never the outdoorsy type. I liked video games and air conditioning. I could barely sleep unless I was in my own bed with my noise machine humming. But I wanted to challenge myself, or maybe I just didn't want to be the only one who didn't sign up. My tent mates were Luke and Brandon. I knew them both decently from school. Luke was funny, didn't take anything seriously. Brandon was quieter, kind of a loner, but not in a weird way. He just didn't talk unless he had something to say. I respected that. We pitched our tent on a little rise above the creek, which meant it stayed dry, but we were the farthest from the latrine. I didn't care. I had my secret weapon, a lightweight folding cot I had begged my mom to buy from REI. She wasn't happy about it, said I should tough it out, but I convinced her it would help my back. Truth was, I just didn't want to sleep on the ground. What I didn't tell anyone was that I also packed a few of my mom's sleeping pills. Just melatonin, nothing hardcore, but enough to knock me out. I've always had trouble falling asleep in unfamiliar places. I figured if I was going to survive 7 nights in the woods, I'd need chemical backup. The week went about how you'd expect. Some fun, some boredom, some fights over whose turn it was to cook. By the 6th day, I was ready to go home. I missed my bed. I missed real food. I missed not smelling like a campfire and sweat. That night, we cooked a foil dinner and sat around telling ghost stories until the sky started to flash with lightning in the distance. You could smell the rain before it hit, earthy and cold and electric. The leaders made us pack up everything that could blow away and then retreat to our tents early. The rain came in sheets, hammering the tent like fists. Thunder cracked so loud it felt like someone slamming a door in my chest. But inside the tent, it was warm and dry. I popped a melatonin, climbed into my sleeping bag on my cot, and told myself to ride out one more night. Just make it till morning. I don't know how long I was asleep before I woke up. My internal clock said it was around 2 or 3 a.m., deep into the night. The storm had moved off. Now it was eerily quiet. No rain, no thunder. Just the sound of the creek gurgling somewhere nearby and the occasional drip of water from the trees onto the tent. At first, I wasn't even sure why I woke up. Then I felt it, something touching my leg. Not roughly, not aggressively, just a hand, a human hand, light and deliberate, like it was making sure I was real. I froze. It was too dark to see clearly. The only light came from the glow of the moon filtered through the thin tent fabric. But as my eyes adjusted, I could make out the shape of a person crouched beside my cot. Not standing, not kneeling. Crouched like a catcher in a baseball game. head tilted slightly, hands low. It wasn't Luke. It wasn't Brandon. This figure was wrong. Taller, the shoulders broader. There was a sense of stillness to him that made my skin crawl. Not the stillness of sleep, but the kind that comes from someone holding perfectly still, like an animal watching prey. I whispered, "Who is that?" No answer, just the sound of the creak and my heart pounding. I blinked hard. I knew melatonin could mess with my sleep cycles. Maybe this was a hallucination. Maybe I was half dreaming. But then I felt the hand again, still gentle but firmer, almost curious. My stomach flipped. I wanted to scream. I wanted to leap up and shine a flashlight in his face, but I couldn't move. Something in my brain locked up, like it decided denial was safer than action. The figure slowly leaned down until I couldn't see him anymore from my raised cot. He was on the floor now, hidden from view. I waited for a sound, breathing, movement, anything. But there was nothing. Just silence. I didn't sleep again that night. Not really. I drifted in and out, paralyzed and sweating. The hand never returned, but I also never heard the zipper of the tent open or close. I kept waiting to hear someone shift or murmur. But Luke and Brandon just slept. Somehow, when the first light of dawn colored the inside of the tent, I finally rolled to the edge of my cot and looked down. Nobody was there. Brandon was curled in his sleeping bag. Luke was sprawled on his back with his mouth open, snoring softly. I thought maybe I had dreamed the whole thing. I was tired enough, strung out, stressed. I wanted it to be just a weird dream. And maybe I would have believed that if Brandon hadn't spoken up at breakfast. We were all sitting around eating instant oatmeal and squinting at the fire when he said, "Hey, did either of you get up last night?" Luke shrugged. "Nah." "Why?" Brandon frowned. "I thought I heard someone unzip the tent, then just stand there. I thought maybe someone had to pee, but it didn't sound like either of you. The footsteps were too heavy." I looked at him, not sure what to say. "Like, I don't think I was dreaming," Brandon said. "It freaked me out. I kept waiting for whoever it was to move or speak, but they just stood there," Luke scoffed. "Maybe one of the leaders was checking on us." We asked. They said no. They hadn't checked any tents after lights out. No late-night visits, no missing gear, no footprints around our tent that couldn't have been ours. I didn't tell them about the hand, about how long the figure stayed, about how quiet it was. That part stayed with me. The weirdest thing is, the more time passes, the more I question what I actually remember. I never saw a face, never heard a voice. There was no attack, no theft, no obvious reason for anyone to be there. Just a presence, a hand, a silence that didn't belong. Brandon never brought it up again. Luke forgot about it within days. But I didn't. Years later, I still think about that night. I still wonder who or what was in our tent, why it touched my leg, why it said nothing, why it left without a sound, and most of all, how it got in. Because I know this much for sure. I always sleep next to the zipper, and that morning, it was still closed. We were deep in the Ouachita Mountains of Arkansas, about 2 hours from the nearest town, camping off a trail near Table Rock, a giant slab of stone that juts from the hillside like some ancient altar. It was supposed to be a digital detox trip. Just me, my cousin Jordan, our friend Lexi, and Jordan's older brother Darren. 4 days in nature, hammocks slung between pines, clean air, and nothing but wind and firelight to keep time. The first 2 nights were perfect. We hiked, fished, laughed, and told stories around the fire. The air was cool and clear, with stars so sharp you felt like you could slice your palm on them. We cooked simple meals and passed around a bottle of cheap whiskey, just enough to take the edge off. Then came night 3. I remember it was just past 3 a.m. because I checked my watch when I woke up suddenly, gasping like I'd been pulled out of deep water. I was sleeping in my hammock maybe 30 feet from the fire pit. Everyone else was tucked away in their own little tree-slung cocoons. The fire had burned down to a soft red glow. What woke me wasn't a sound exactly. It was a pressure in the air, like the world was holding its breath and then exhaling in chaos. Every single animal in the forest went insane. Birds, squirrels, insects, owls, even deer. We could hear them all. Shrill cries, frantic rustling, tree limbs shaking, wings flapping in every direction. I'm from Kansas. I've lived through 2 tornadoes. And this was the same exact thing that happens right before the funnel touches down. That primal electric terror in the air. Except there wasn't a single cloud overhead. Not even wind. The air was unnaturally still, except for the storm of animals screaming around us. I peeked out of my hammock, trying to make sense of it. Lexi zipped open her hammock just enough to peer out, eyes wide. "What the hell is that?" she whispered. "No idea," I replied. "It's not weather. There's no wind. Look at the trees." The pine needles weren't moving, the fire wasn't flickering, and yet the woods were alive with motion and noise. Then Jordan's voice came from above me. His hammock was strung higher on a sloping tree. "You guys awake?" he hissed. I could barely see his silhouette in the dark, but I knew from his tone he was spooked. "I'm awake," Lexi whispered. Then suddenly, silence. It didn't fade out. It stopped, like someone hit mute on the forest. And it didn't just stop at once. It felt like the silence moved, like a shockwave collapsing in toward us. The farthest trees quieted first, then closer and closer until our own clearing fell silent. We didn't speak for a full minute, just listened. It was the most unnatural silence I've ever heard. Not dead quiet, wrong quiet. I climbed out of my hammock, boots crunching on the pine needles, and stoked the fire until it blazed a good 3 feet high. I wanted light, needed it. Jordan came down to help, then decided to go up the trail to check on Darren. His hammock was up a ridge about 50 feet away, tucked behind a stand of dogwoods where he liked to read in peace. A few seconds after Jordan disappeared up the trail, we heard him scream. Not a startled yelp or a surprised shout, a real, full-bellied, "something is very wrong" scream. I'd only heard him yell like that once before, when he broke his collarbone snowboarding. I grabbed the axe and flashlight and took off uphill with Lexi right behind me. Darren was standing up, barefoot on the rocks, shirtless despite the cold, staring off into the dark trees. He was trembling. His eyes were open so wide it looked like his eyelids were trying to peel back into his skull. But what freaked me out most was how still he was. Shivering, yes, but otherwise frozen. "Darren," Jordan shouted, grabbing him by the shoulders. "Are you okay?" No answer. His mouth was slightly open, like he was about to say something but couldn't remember how. Lexi threw a blanket over him. I checked his pulse, racing, pupils fully dilated. He was in shock. We got him back down to the fire, sat him next to the flames, wrapped in everything warm we had, even gave him a few sips of whiskey. He stared into the fire like it was the only thing he recognized. We stayed awake until dawn. Nobody wanted to be alone. Eventually, Darren laid down by the fire and passed out cold. The sun came up golden and soft, and we decided to hike back up to the ridge to get a better look at the sunrise. The four of us had hiked this trail a dozen times. It opened up to a wide overlook above a bend in the river. A perfect spot to watch the day begin. We left Darren by the fire, still sleeping like a stone. But the ridge view wasn't as peaceful as we remembered. "Hey," Lexi said, squinting and pointing. "What is that?" At first, I didn't see it. Then I noticed a strange shape on the riverbank, a kind of perfectly clean clearing, triangular in shape. Bushes were flattened down. Grass, too. No color variation, no animal tracks. It didn't look like anything natural. Jordan and I decided to check it out. Lexi stayed behind, still freaked from the night before. We made our way down the ridge and toward the river. Took us about 25 minutes. The woods grew stiller with every step, and not just still. Empty. No birds, no bugs, no rustling leaves. It was like someone had scooped all the life out of the area with a net. When we got close enough to the clearing, the unease got worse. I reached for my phone to snap a picture, and nothing. Black screen. Wouldn't even turn on. Jordan tried his too. Dead. That made no sense. I'd charged mine with a power bank before bed. His was plugged into his solar panel all day, but the phones were just dead. We kept moving, now more cautiously. The triangle clearing was about 100 feet wide. Every bush and plant inside it had been flattened, not broken, just pressed to the ground like they had grown that way. Even the mature brush, stuff that doesn't just bend, was pinned flat. Some of it even curled slightly with the shape of the triangle, as if it had yielded willingly. We didn't speak, just stood there, staring, taking it in. When we got back to camp, Darren was up and cooking eggs, like nothing happened. Lexi had that same weird look on her face, half relieved, half on edge. Darren smiled at us. "Hey, you guys missed breakfast. Fire's still hot." We looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "You okay?" Jordan asked cautiously. "Yeah," Darren said, confused. "Why?" Jordan looked to me. I took over. "You don't remember anything from last night?" He shrugged. I guess I had some weird dreams. Woke up down here instead of up the ridge, so I must have moved in my sleep. That's new." Lexi sat next to him. "You were shaking. You were in shock." "I was." "You didn't speak for 20 minutes, I said. He laughed, genuinely. "You guys are messing with me." We weren't. We told him everything. He just shook his head like we were trying to prank him. We pulled out our phones to show him they had died, and both turned on instantly. My battery said 63%. Jordan's showed 48%. It made no sense. We all agreed to pack up camp. There was just too much that didn't add up. Then Darren asked, "Hey, did anyone see my camera?" His DSLR, big, heavy, almost never out of reach. He slept with it next to him every single trip, but it was gone. Not just misplaced, gone. Not under his hammock, not by the fire, not up the ridge. We searched for over an hour. No tracks, no drag marks, no sign it had ever been there at all. Eventually, we gave up. Jordan offered to split the cost of a new one. Darren just looked puzzled, more than upset. We hiked out in silence. About an hour later, Jordan asked me, "Do you think he saw something? Like, tried to photograph it?" That stopped me in my tracks. Because yeah, I did, but I didn't want to say it. "Let's just not talk about it," I muttered. "Let's just go." And that was the last time we ever went camping together. Darren stopped answering our messages a few months later, said he was traveling, needed space. It's been almost a year now. None of us have heard from him since. I'm a 27-year-old guy from East Texas, and for the past year I'd been planning the perfect camping trip. Life had been hitting hard. Work, bills, stress, and I just wanted one good escape. Somewhere quiet, remote, and raw. So I picked out an area deep in the Davy Crockett National Forest. My dad, who's been camping longer than I've been alive, was coming. My wife, too. Just the three of us and the woods. I wanted it to be perfect. We'd scouted out this area once before. It was dense, trees packed tight like a green wall all around. Not a single man-made sound once you got past the gravel trail. 2 dirt roads ran parallel through this section of the forest, and between them was a wide clearing we had marked as our spot. North of that clearing, up a slight ridge, was an overlook with a view of the forest stretching out for miles like a sea of green. My dad decided to drive out early on Friday morning to grab the site. He left around 7 a.m. and got there before 9, texted us that the spot was wide open and even better than he remembered. My wife and I rolled in around 11 a.m. It was warm but not too hot. Just enough breeze to rustle the trees and keep the bugs down. Perfect. We set up camp. 2 tents, a fire pit, some folding chairs, and a pop-up shade cover. The day passed with that lazy, satisfying rhythm that only comes when you're far from a cell signal. We grilled lunch, hiked a short trail, then started prepping dinner as the sun began to drop behind the trees. Just as the fire started to crackle with dinner done and our beers opened, a pickup truck appeared from the western dirt road. It was a beat-up black Chevy, extended cab, lifted suspension. It slowed as it neared, rolled past once, then again, circling our camp like it was casing us. We all noticed. The truck rolled around a 3rd time, then pulled right up to the fire ring, scattering some of the smaller firewood we had stacked nearby. A tall, wiry guy in his 40s stepped out. Wore a camo vest, jeans, and old combat boots. He didn't smile. He opened with, "You know this is my family's spot, right?" We looked at each other. My dad answered first, calm and polite. Been coming here for years, never seen anyone claim it. First come, first serve. Yeah, well, that firewood you're burning, that's ours. Now, we had collected that wood ourselves earlier. The guy didn't offer proof or any sign he was joking. Still, we didn't want trouble. My dad said, "You're welcome to camp nearby if you want. Plenty of room." The guy nodded slowly, like he was deciding whether to fight or not, then muttered, "Fine." We assumed he'd find a spot within eyesight. Instead, he backed in his fifth-wheel camper right up against our tents, maybe 6 feet away. So close he blocked in my truck entirely. We couldn't have driven out if we wanted to. It was bizarre. The whole forest, open, and he picked that spot. But we let it go. Maybe he was just one of those "I do what I want" types. We kept the fire going, had a few drinks, played some cards. He stayed inside his camper most of the time. Occasionally, we saw movement behind the tinted windows, like shadows shifting. Then, just after midnight, another truck showed up. A white Dodge dually. This one didn't park. It circled once, twice, 3 times. Same as the Chevy had done earlier, except this truck never stopped. Just kept cruising slow, its headlights sweeping over our tents and vehicles. Something about it didn't sit right. My wife leaned in. "Why are they doing that? That's the second one tonight." I didn't have a good answer. After a few more beers and a long sit by the fire, we decided to call it a night. We zipped up in our tents and tried to sleep. A couple hours later, maybe around 3:30 a.m., I shot awake. A scream somewhere in the woods. Not a human scream. Animalistic. Raw. It came from the south, then stopped abruptly. I sat up fast. My wife, startled, said, "What was that?" Before I could answer, another scream cut through the trees, farther away this time, more drawn out. My instincts kicked in. I grabbed my Glock from my duffel and unzipped the tent. My dad's lantern was still burning low, casting just enough light to see the edge of the tree line. That's when we heard the rumble. The white dually again, tearing down the dirt road behind our camp, kicking up dust in the moonlight. It passed in a flash, continued a few hundred yards, then came to a sudden stop. Doors slammed. Voices, yelling, unintelligible, echoed through the forest. Then more slams. Then silence. We stood frozen, hearts pounding. Then the truck reappeared, rolling slowly down the other road in front of our camp. This time it crawled, like it was watching us. The headlights off now, just the low rumble of its engine. I turned off my flashlight. My wife gripped my arm. My dad, already outside his tent, had a rifle at his side. The truck kept going until it disappeared behind the trees. Then pop, pop, pop gunshots, at least 6. Then the truck sped off, tires crunching gravel, fading into the distance. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. Morning came, and we all tried to shake it off. Maybe they were drunk, maybe it was just random backwoods stupidity. We needed more beer anyway, so my wife and I decided to make a run into town. But when we pulled out of the forest and hit the main road, everything changed. Sheriff's cars, state troopers, a roadblock. We were waved through eventually, but not before seeing 2 young guys, maybe college age, in cuffs sitting on the tailgate of a trooper's truck, pale and shaking. We figured they were the ones causing trouble the night before. But when we got back to the camp, my dad told us the real story. Those two boys weren't the problem. They were the victims. According to the sheriff, they had been camping half a mile south of us. Left their camp early that morning to go hunting. While they were gone, the guys in the white dually, possibly with help, had broken into their site, stolen supplies, rifled through tents. When the boys returned and caught them in the act, the thieves drew guns. Full-on armed robbery in the woods. The boys were lucky to get away without being shot. And here's the thing that stuck with us, hard. Those guys had probably seen our camp first. The only reason they might have passed us up? That weird guy in the black Chevy and his fifth wheel parked right on top of us. It made our camp look crowded, harder to rob, riskier, more witnesses. That camper, as annoying and intrusive as it was, might have saved our lives. We stayed one more night, but nobody slept. Every twig snap had us on edge. Every headlight in the distance made our skin crawl. When we packed up and left, we never saw the black Chevy guy again. No goodbye, no sign of him. The sheriff never caught the ones in the dually. No plates, no prints, just some shell casings and shaken witnesses. We don't talk about that trip much, but every time I think of going back out there, I hesitate, because the woods can be quiet, too quiet. And sometimes when you think you're alone, you're not.